They say honesty is noble. They say it's pure. But here's what they never tell you. Honesty doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like a blade. It doesn't whisper, it cuts. It doesn't comfort, it confronts. It doesn't stroke your ego, it shatters it. Because truth isn't designed to protect your pride. It's designed to expose your weakness. And that's why we run from it. That's why we call it too harsh, too direct, too much. Not because it's cruel, but because it's real. Real doesn't taste sweet. It burns on the way down. It dismantles the stories you've built to survive. It pulls the masks off your face and forces you to stare into your own reflection. Not the curated one, not the confident one, but the one trembling underneath it all. That's what honesty does. It demands surrender. It demands that you stop pretending you're fine when you're breaking. That you stop performing strength when you're drowning in silence. We crave truth when it's convenient. When it flatters us, when it validates us, when it makes us feel chosen. But when truth turns its eyes toward our flaws, our fears, our contradictions, we call it cruelty. Because the truth doesn't negotiate. It doesn't soften itself to spare your feelings. It doesn't pause to ask if you're ready. It walks in, uninvited, and tears down the walls you built around your comfort. And in that moment, you have a choice. To see it as an attack or as liberation. Because every truth that hurts you is a truth that can free you, if you let it. But most people won't. They'd rather live in the safety of almost knowing than face the rawness of seeing too clearly. They call that peace. But it's not peace. It's paralysis. It's pretending the wound isn't bleeding because you're afraid of what the light will reveal. And here's the cruelest irony. The longer you avoid the truth, the louder it becomes. It will echo in your relationships, in your failures, in your sleepless nights. It will whisper every time you fake a smile. The truth doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It waits, patiently, until one day it erupts, and everything you refuse to face comes crashing down at once. So no, honesty isn't cruel. What's cruel is living a lie so convincing that you forget what real even feels like. Honesty may burn your illusions, but those illusions were never your home. They were your prison. And the truth, as ruthless as it may seem, is the only thing powerful enough to break the lock. The ego is clever. It wears humility like armor and calls itself self-respect. But don't be fooled. The ego doesn't care about truth. It cares about control. It doesn't want you to see. It wants you to believe. Believe you're right. Believe you're enough as you are. Believe you've already healed when deep down, the wound still bleeds. The ego builds walls out of comfort. It keeps you safe from humiliation, safe from rejection, safe from the sting of being wrong. But safety isn't the same as peace. And protection isn't the same as growth, because every wall that protects you also imprisons you. The ego doesn't seek truth. It filters it. It edits every word you hear, twists every mirror you look into, until even the lies start sounding like love. It whispers, don't let them see your weakness. It says, you don't need to change. They do. It tells you honesty is cruelty, just to protect itself from the discomfort of being exposed. But truth doesn't care about your defenses. It doesn't stop knocking just because you're hiding behind pride. It will find its way in, through the cracks, through the arguments, through the moments you can't sleep at night. That's why the ego hates honest people. Because honest people are mirrors. They don't feed your illusions. They reflect them back at you. And you'll call them cold. You'll call them arrogant. You'll call them heartless. not because they are, but because they threaten the one thing your ego fears most: being seen for what it is. The ego thrives on validation. It wants to be right, not to be real. It wants to be admired, not understood. It wants to look healed, not be healed. So when someone gives you truth, raw, unpolished, uncomfortable truth, your ego panics. It fights. It deflects. It says, they're just being negative, or they don't understand me. But that's the moment you should listen closer, because behind every truth that offends you, there's something your soul is trying to reveal. Honesty isn't cruelty, it's confrontation. And confrontation is what the ego fears most, because it dissolves in it. The moment you stop defending your image, you meet yourself. The moment you stop chasing validation, you start finding freedom. But the ego won't go quietly. It will make you question everyone who tells you what you need to hear. It will whisper that truth is unkind, that honesty destroys connection, that silence is safer. And for a while, you'll believe it, because denial feels easier than awakening. But one day, you'll realize the ego was never protecting you. It was protecting itself. It was protecting the lie that kept you small, the narrative that kept you numb. And when that realization hits, when you finally see how many dreams you've sacrificed just to protect your pride, that's when the war begins. Not between you and the world, between you and your reflection. The ego will beg to survive. It will bargain. It will justify. But you'll know better, because deep down, beneath the noise of pride and fear, your soul is whispering, let it die. Let the ego die so you can finally live. And that's what honesty does. It kills the mask. It kills the illusion. But it also sets the truth free. And once you taste that freedom, you'll never defend the ego again. Honesty sounds beautiful until you realize how much it asks of you. It's easy to say, I value truth, until truth starts tearing through the fabric of your comfort, until it costs you approval, until it costs you relationships, until it costs you the version of yourself you've been pretending to be. Because honesty doesn't just expose the world around you. It exposes you. And when that happens, when you start speaking the truth your soul has been choking on, people will leave. They'll misunderstand you. They'll call you distant, cold, arrogant, ungrateful. But what they really mean is this: you're no longer who I need you to be for me. See, people love honesty until it threatens their illusion of you. They love your truth when it flatters them. But the moment it challenges their comfort, they call it betrayal. That's the first cost of honesty: connection. You lose the connections that were built on pretense. You lose the people who only loved your silence, your compliance, your ability to smile through their disrespect. But what you gain is something far greater. You gain alignment. You gain peace with yourself. You gain nights where you can find slowly sleep knowing you didn't lie to survive. Honesty strips you bare. It leaves you without the mask you wore for safety, without the smiles you forced to be accepted. It demands courage in its rawest form, not the kind that fights the world, but the kind that faces itself. You will feel lonely in that honesty. You will walk through days where the silence feels unbearable, where you question if truth was worth it, because comfort is addictive, and honesty will detox you from every illusion that once kept you numb. The cost of honesty is grief. You grieve the life you built in denial. You grieve the identities that no longer fit. You grieve the love that couldn't survive your truth. But grief is the price of awakening. You can't have freedom without loss. You can't stand in truth without watching something burn. And maybe that's why so many people stay quiet. Because honesty demands sacrifice. And lies are easier currency. You can buy acceptance with a smile. You can keep peace by swallowing your truth. But every time you do, you sell a piece of your soul. And the soul keeps count. Every unspoken truth becomes a weight. Every swallowed word a fracture in your spirit. Until one day, you wake up realizing the price of pretending was far heavier than the cost of honesty ever could be. So yes, honesty costs you things, but it never takes more than it gives. Because what it gives you can't be bought, can't be faked, can't be lost. It gives you integrity. It gives you freedom. It gives you the rarest kind of peace, the kind that doesn't depend on approval. The truth may cost you comfort, but comfort costs you yourself. And when it comes down to it, who are you if you've traded your truth for the illusion of belonging? So let it cost what it costs. Let it break what it must. Because everything you lose in honesty was never real enough to stay. There's a strange moment that happens when truth arrives. It doesn't come wearing white robes and gentle words. It doesn't knock softly. It crashes through the door. And suddenly, everything you thought was stable starts to shake. That's when people say, "You've changed." No, you didn't change. You just stopped lying. But to them, that feels like betrayal, because your silence used to protect their comfort. Your compliance used to feed their illusion. And your honesty, it disrupts the lie they were living with you. We call that betrayal, but it's not betrayal. It's revelation. It's light pouring into a room that's been dark for too long. And when that light hits, everyone flinches. Because honesty doesn't just expose others. It exposes the roles they played in your denial. It shows who was truly with you and who was only with your mask. People say, "You've become so distant." No, you've just become clear. And clarity threatens those who thrive in confusion. They'll tell you you're cruel for speaking your truth, as if silence was a kindness. But silence is what keeps dysfunction alive. It's what lets manipulation hide behind politeness. It's what lets resentment grow in the dark until it poisons everything. And yet, when you finally speak, when you finally refuse to pretend, you become the villain in someone else's story. That's the paradox of truth. The moment you free yourself, someone else will call it betrayal. Because they weren't in love with you. They were in love with the version of you that made them feel comfortable. And when honesty removes that comfort, they see you as disloyal. But really, you're just no longer loyal to your own suppression. We mistake peace for silence. We mistake love for agreement. We mistake loyalty for compliance. But real love doesn't demand that you betray yourself to keep it. Real peace doesn't require pretending. And real loyalty doesn't ask you to lie. Honesty feels like betrayal only when the relationship was built on illusion. It feels cruel only when someone benefits from your confusion. You can love someone deeply and still outgrow the version of you they fell for. You can care with your whole heart and still say, "This truth can't stay buried anymore." That's not cruelty. That's courage. Because the hardest thing you'll ever do is tell the truth in a place that taught you to stay quiet. To risk being misunderstood so you can finally live understood by yourself. And yes, they might leave. They might twist your truth to fit their comfort. They might say you turn cold. But remember this: their perception isn't your punishment. It's their mirror. Sometimes being honest will make you the villain in their story, but the hero in your own. You can't control who feels betrayed by your truth. You can only control whether you keep betraying yourself to avoid it. So if honesty costs you their approval, let it. If it costs you the version of life that depended on your silence, let it. Because what looks like betrayal to them is really the beginning of your freedom. And one day, when the noise settles, when the anger fades, when truth stands untouched, they'll realize you never betrayed them. You just refuse to keep betraying yourself. There's a point in your life when truth stops knocking and starts burning. It doesn't come as gentle advice anymore. It comes as a reckoning. A fire that consumes everything false, everything small, everything built on fear. And when it hits, it's not quiet. It roars. It burns through your excuses, through your comfort zones, through the stories you've been reciting just to avoid your own reflection. The truth is fire, not because it hates you, but because it refuses to let you stay asleep. We spend years hiding from it. We hide behind busyness, behind distractions, behind smiles that ache at the edges. We call it coping. We call it moving on. But it's not moving on. It's standing still in disguise. And then one day, the fire finds you, maybe in heartbreak, maybe in failure, maybe in the mirror when you realize the person staring back has been living a half-life. That's when honesty stops being an idea and becomes an inferno. It starts by asking questions you don't want to answer. Why do you keep pretending you're fine? Why do you keep settling for less than you deserve? Why do you keep blaming others for wounds you refuse to heal? And suddenly, everything burns. The relationships built on pretending, the comfort built on denial, the peace built on silence. The fire doesn't ask permission. It just does what it came to do: purify. It burns away the people who loved your weakness, the habits that numbed your potential, the lies that kept you small. And yes, it hurts. It hurts because it's real. Because for the first time, you're not being coddled by illusions. You're being confronted by truth. Truth will never destroy who you are. It only destroys who you're not. It strips away the false confidence, the victimhood, the fear of being misunderstood. It leaves you raw, uncomfortable, exposed, but alive. And in that rawness, you'll discover something miraculous. You don't need to be perfect to be whole. You don't need to be right to be real. You just need to stop running. That's what the fire teaches you. That destruction and rebirth are the same language spoken in different tones. That everything you lose in the fire was never meant to survive in your truth. People will see your transformation and call it madness. They'll say you've become distant, hardened, cold. They won't understand that you're not colder. You're clearer. They won't see that the fire didn't destroy you. It refined you. Because truth doesn't turn you bitter. It turns you pure. It turns you precise. It makes your words sharper, your standards higher, your silence heavier with meaning. You start choosing peace over attention, integrity over image, authenticity over approval. And that's when you realize the fire didn't come to punish you. It came to reveal you. To burn away the masks, to melt down the pretense, until all that's left is your essence. Unfiltered, unshakable, undeniable. So let it burn. Let the truth scorch everything that was never yours. Let it take the false identities you wore just to be loved. Let it cleanse your spirit of every should, every must, every sorry that wasn't real. Because only through fire can gold become gold. And you are gold. You've just been buried under the ash of who you thought you had to be. So don't fear the fire. Walk through it. Embrace it. Let it strip you down to your bones, because what's real will always survive it. The truth will burn you, yes, but it will also baptize you. And when you rise from the flames, you won't just be honest. You'll be free. There comes a moment when the fire quiets, when the smoke settles, when you're standing in the ruins of who you used to be. And for the first time, you're not afraid of the silence. That's the rise. It's not glamorous. It's not cinematic. It's raw. It's the moment you realize the worst has already happened. The lies have burned. The masks have melted. The illusions are gone. And somehow, you're still here. That's when you understand something sacred. Honesty didn't destroy you. It destroyed your false self, the one who kept apologizing for existing, the one who stayed small to be accepted, the one who mistook peace for silence and love for approval. You don't rise the moment the truth finds you. You rise the moment you stop running from it. The rise doesn't look like triumph at first. It looks like rebuilding. It looks like sitting in the ashes, hands trembling, breath uneven, but whispering, I can't go back. Because once you've tasted truth, once you've felt the weight of living real, you can't return to pretending. You can't unsee your worth. You can't unknow your strength. Rising means choosing authenticity over approval every single day, even when it costs you the room, even when it costs you love, even when your voice shakes while you speak your truth. You rise when you stop mistaking loneliness for loss. Because sometimes, solitude is what freedom feels like in the beginning. You rise when you realize your power isn't in being liked. It's in being aligned. When you stop begging people to understand you and start focusing on understanding yourself. Because clarity replaces the need for validation. Peace replaces the need for permission. And once you know who you are, no one can convince you to go back to who you were. The rise isn't about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. About who you knew you could become if you stopped betraying yourself. You start moving differently, speaking differently, loving differently, because truth has changed your rhythm. It's carved humility into your strength and purpose into your pain. You don't seek closure anymore. You create it. You don't chase validation. You embody value. You don't wait for peace. You become it. That's the quiet power of someone who's risen. They don't need to announce their healing. You can see it in how they walk through storms without losing their center. You can hear it in the silence they no longer fill with explanations. You can feel it in the boundaries they set without guilt. Because rising isn't about fighting anymore. It's about mastering stillness. It's about knowing that what's meant for you doesn't require you to shrink to fit it. And maybe the most beautiful part is that honesty, once feared, has become your foundation. It's no longer the fire that burns you. It's the light that guides you. It's the pulse that keeps you aligned when the world tries to pull you back into pretending. You rise not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. You rise because the truth no longer feels like punishment. It feels like peace. You rise because you finally understand. The point was never to be perfect. It was to be real. So when they ask, how did you do it? Tell them this. You stopped begging the world to understand your worth. You stopped mistaking honesty for cruelty. You stopped calling growth betrayal. You stopped protecting your ego and started protecting your soul. That's how you rise. Not in noise, not in rage, but in quiet, steady truth. And once you rise from that, nothing and no one can ever bury you again.